But I'm reading your examples, Samantha. Oh, there's David. Hey, David.
Hey.
My only concern is that I think it's talking about stuff prior to the contract being signed, trying to be submitted. I mean, we could just change the wording to show that they had conversations about it, but then it didn't end up in the contract.
Yeah, I was going to say stuff that essentially doesn't end up in the contract, because I did a little bit more research, and an integrated contract is essentially all of the components that are supposed to be in the contract from prior agreements, whether written or oral. If they're in the final version, then that would be what judges look at. And if there's anything that would come up in evidence against it, judges typically don't look it over or allow it into the courts only because it should have been in the merger and the party should have read it and signed it beforehand. If that makes any sense.
Kind of. I was just bringing up the point that what your example shows that they talked about it after the contract was signed, and the examples that she spoke about in our class meeting yesterday, and when you read the book, it talks about if it was prior to the contract. I mean, I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but...
It kind of does to a degree. My understanding was the parole evidence is if it's something that goes against, contradicts or invalidates a contract, and it's from outside, it won't be allowed in.
Okay.
Well, the idea was that you go to court and you sue somebody for what's in the contract, and you add additional things onto it, like I want, a late fee. I want a fee for, I don't know, time and travel, and that can't be included in a lawsuit.
The only part that I'm talking about is point number 3 on page 148. It says, is the proposed evidence to be introduced at court as evidence of a prior or contemporaneous agreement? So I was reading that as something that happened prior being before, or contemporaneous that kind of at the same time, versus after. I mean, after would be an addendum to the contract, but so I'm not just throwing that out there as a point.
Yeah. No, I know, because if you go down a little bit farther, it says, if the answer is yes to all 4 questions, then the parole evidence rule bars the introduction of that evidence.
Right, but that's talking about prior. So I'm just, my question with your example is it's stating that they created a contract, and then afterwards they talked about something. So to me, I'm not sure if that would fall on parole evidence because it's after the contract. So he could be saying this was an addendum and an additional thing we agreed on, rather than what the parole evidence is saying is it something that was evidence prior, of a prior agreement. That was the way I was reading it, but...
Okay, because the way I intended to write it was that even though they did it after the contract was signed, if you go and you say, well, here's my contract, but now I want to add this after we signed it, you can't really do that.
So are you reading contemporaneous as it being after the fact?
Contemporaneous. Let me just see if I can go and have an idea. Hold on 1 second. Because I'm trying to find the definition.
I think that you're right. That, I mean, something that's afterwards, you can't add it back into the contract. But I think to qualify for the parole evidence rule, it's got to be something that was prior to, that they can say, well, before we even signed the contract, we agreed to this. And they can say, well, we'll throw it out because it didn't make the contract.
Exactly.
If it's something afterwards, that probably wouldn't be looked at, but it would be a different ruling, a different reason that it wasn't looked at, and not necessarily the parole evidence rule that would take it out.
And for contemporaneous agreement, it's basically a concurrent, coexistent, simultaneous, or synchronous agreement. So it would be going on during making that contract.
Right, at the same time. Right, so I think if we use your example, I think we just need to change it to, instead of a few days after, it should say a few days prior they had been discussing that it would have a mini fridge and bar, but the contract didn't state that.
Okay.
That's just if we decide to go with your example, that's just one slight change that I think just to make sure that we're actually following the parole evidence rule.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that one's kind of confusing, so okay.
Okay. So like I read Nancy's, and Nancy, I love the example of the specialized birthday cake. That's cool. But I'm
Yeah.
not sure that that fits the parole evidence because it doesn't say that this was something that they had agreed on or talked about prior. Like it would be thrown out because it wasn't in the contract, but I'm not sure it fits the parole evidence. But I'm looking at the parole evidence very specifically because it does seem so specific. So it's like, in order for the parole evidence to work, it's that question of number 3, is the proposed evidence to be introduced evidence of a prior or contemporaneous agreement? And like in yours with the late fee, it doesn't mention that they had prior agreed to that anywhere, without, I mean, even without the contract.
No, but when I searched examples, it actually found things that were similar to that, and that's why I went with that, because it didn't have to. He's asking for something that wasn't in the contract, and that's part of what it is, I think.
And it would be thrown out because it's not in the contract, but I'm not sure that it fits the exact parole evidence rule. Because the parole evidence rule has that very specific 4-part test to decide whether to apply it. So, I mean, like your example, we would just need to add in there that they had discussed that there were late fees. When they were talking about the order, they discussed that there were late fees. And I know I'm being really picky. I'm just trying to really exactly follow. I'm not trying to be argumentative.
No, that's fine.
It has a lot of broad issues that can make it to where it can either be applied or not applied.
Yeah.
So, see if I can find something.
So, Ty and David, if you guys want to share your examples.
Sure. See, I can share mine. I was under the impression that parole evidence, it could be before or after. I didn't think it had to necessarily be before.
Yeah.
I can read mine. Here's the question I came up with. It says, Lance has fallen on hard times. He agrees to sell his bike, lock, and a few medals he won in France.
David, you're breaking up. Can you copy paste it?
Contract detailing the term. Yeah, I'll just copy paste it.
And Samantha, that's exactly the definition you put. That's exactly what I'm talking about, where it says attempting to alter the meaning of the written document through use of prior and contemporaneous oral or written declarations. So prior declarations, and then contemporaneous, when I looked that up, contemporaneous said things that were concurrent. So there had to be that other discussion of it either prior or during the time that the contract was being made, not afterwards. And it can't be something that somebody just threw on without any of that discussion.
Okay.
I mean, I think those cases it still wouldn't apply, right? Because it's outside the contract. I just think that it wouldn't apply for a different reason, not specifically through the parole evidence rule.
Okay. Because, yeah, that makes a bit more sense. This is just kind of a tricky one. There's so many exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, I was really confused by it, and that's why I'd asked her to talk about it in the office hour. And so the discussion in the office hour was really helpful and really helped me to better understand it.
Because, yeah, I watched it, but I guess it's just not really clicking.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I think, Ty, I'm still reading over the examples. That's what I'm waiting. I'm trying to read your and David examples.
Oh, on the last line of mine, it's correct. I changed the names.
And so that's just, David, with your example, I think it's the same thing, where on the day of the sale, Walter's saying something else, but it's not something that they had agreed to prior. It's not something they had had a discussion and agreed to. So it would be thrown out because it's not part of the contract, but I don't know that it specifically fits these 4 steps of the parole evidence.
Yeah,
So it wouldn't make it fit, it would have to be put into the contract, right? Or is that just breach of contract?
Can you say that again?
So in order to make David's example work, he would need to have it to where the contract held the helmet or had the helmet written in the contract?
No, it just have to be, they had the contract, but before they actually wrote the contract, they had discussions, and part of the talk was that Walter's saying, hey, Lance, you're going to give me your bike helmet with the bike, right? And Lance saying, oh, yeah, of course I'm going to do that. But then when they write the actual contract, that's not a part of the written document.
Okay.
So they had this conversation, or they had this other thing that they talked about, but it didn't make it in the actual contract.
Okay.
That's when the parole evidence would kick in and say, nope, sorry, I get that you guys talked about that before, but when it's not in the contract, even though you had a discussion about it, even though you think you agreed to it, even if you had other documentation stating it, because it's not in the contract, parole evidence won't use it.
Okay.
So. So we just have to figure out what example we want to use and how we want to write it up.
I'm up for whichever one you all are.
I know, Samantha, you've got yours written up, so I think we could just change a couple words instead of a few days after. We could just say a few days, throw that in before. They discussed that he would get a mini fridge, but it wasn't in the contract. You know what I mean? So we could just alternate it if we wanted to.
Sure thing. Yeah, we can do that.
I think that works. Although the question didn't initially explain it, I don't think we need to change the explanation of our example at all.
The explanation.
Yeah, that looks good. Yeah.
So is it possible to phrase the question as which one is such and as not, wait, as which one is not such and such?
Oh no, I hadn't gotten that far with reading the questions yet. I just read your I mean,
Okay.
the answers.
We could probably do that. Yeah, I don't see why not.
We just have to update the quiz question to match how we updated it in the example.
Yeah, no worries.
So maybe we just change the question. I don't know. Bottom court. Oh no, I guess that works because we've got all these points. Never mind. Ignore me. I like the correct answer and the correct answer feedback. That's really clear.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it looks good. We just have to add the feedback so those are the wrong answers.
Mhm.
Um, what's it called? Yeah. We gotta change another sentence. I think it's looking good.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Does someone want to agree, like volunteer to just read it out loud? That way we can make sure everything's in here that needs to be.
Like, read the whole thing out loud?
If that's okay.
Okay, Ty's typing something. Probably putting on a mini fridge and bar is not written in the contract. I think I put that line in there.
Yeah, it is. It's at the bottom of the first paragraph. Still looking out, Ty.
Yeah. Okay. So you want me to just read the whole thing out loud, Samantha? Is that what you're wanting?
Sure, if that's all right, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. All right, so our example. James Bond hires Tony Stark Industries to create a brand new waterproof car that uses renewable energy instead of fuel. After discussing all of the features the car will have, Bond and Stark prepare and sign a contract. However, before the contract was signed, Bond decides that he wants the car to have a mini fridge and bar installed. Bond discusses the new features with Stark, who agrees with Bond, but the contract itself didn't include the mini fridge and bar. Once the car is finished, Bond is upset that Stark did not install a mini fridge and bar, and so he asks Stark to add the items to the car. When Stark refuses to do the extra work, Bond files a lawsuit against Stark. During the trial, Bond submits evidence about the conversation of the mini fridge and bar. The court rules that once the contract has been signed by all concerned parties, Bond and Stark, it cannot be altered or annulled by any oral evidence that may contradict the terms of the agreement, except in the case of a fraud or mistake. Stark is not liable for fraud or a mistake. He is not forced to add the mini fridge and bar. Explanation of our example. The parole evidence rule preserves the integrity of written documents by barring contract parties from attempting to alter the intent or specifications of a written contract through the use of prior and contemporaneous oral or written testimonies that are not in the written contract. Because the contract did not specify that Stark would add mini fridge and bar, the court will not enforce elements found outside the contract. I don't understand what you just added.
I just put A.
Oh, I think you just put it on the wrong side of add.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, why? Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It just seemed weird. I'm like, there needs to be an A in there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so quiz question. James Bond hires Tony Stark Industries to create a brand new waterproof car that uses renewable energy instead of fuel. After discussing all of the features the car will have, Bond and Stark prepare and sign a contract. However, before the contract was signed, Bond decides that he wants the car to have a mini fridge and bar installed. Bond discusses the new features with Stark, who agrees with Bond, but the contract itself didn't include the mini fridge and bar. Once the car is finished, Bond is upset that Stark did not install a mini fridge and bar, and so he asks Stark to add the items to the car. When Stark refuses to do the extra work, Bond files a lawsuit against Stark. Which of the following would be allowed in court under the parole evidence rule? Correct answer, evidence outside the contract explaining how elaborate the car's specifications would be. Correct answer, feedback. This is correct because evidence contradicting or invalidating a contract is barred, while evidence that explains, clarifies, or elaborates is allowed. Evidence indicating that the mini fridge and bar agreement took place in a bar. This is incorrect because it is the quality of the agreement and how relevant it is to the contract and not the location of where it happened. Evidence indicating that the oral agreement also occurred before the written contract but did not end up in the final and complete contract. This is incorrect because evidence that conflicts with or substantially adds to the contract and was part of a prior or contemporaneous agreement is barred under the parole evidence rule. Evidence indicating that the contract was integrated. This is incorrect because an integrated contract is a final expression of all contractual terms.
Okay. Cool.
I think it looks good.
Yeah, I think it looks good.
Awesome.
Are you going to add the link to it from here?
The
The
way
link-
we do that is we need to have the meeting end, and then once it ends, because it'll be on your account, Nancy, if you want to email us that link, we can go and do that or add it on here, and then if you want, I can submit it, or if someone else would like to, you're more than welcome. But yeah.
Okay, once it ends, then I could grab the link from my YouTube account. Is that what you want me to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And once you have that, you can email whoever wants to submit it, and we can plug that in, and then we can submit it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also when you get that link, be sure to post it onto the class page. So that-
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll do that right away. And then, okay, as soon as it ends, I'll just go grab it, add it to it, and then I'll just get it emailed to everybody, and I'll get the video put up on the in our.
Okay. And if you have any questions while you're doing that, I'll stay on the computer for a while. So if you want to shoot me a
Okay.
question, I'll be here to help.
All right. Thanks, Samantha.
All right.
Okay. Great job, Samantha. Way to put it together. Becky, way to edit it.
Hope I'm not too bossy. I try not to be.
You're good.
No, you're fine, Becky. I appreciate your contribution and leadership. Okay, guys. So what about next week? We're still in the same time, Becky?
Yeah,
We're still
I
in the
have
same-
one more class that I'm teaching next week, so if we could keep it this time, that helps.
So 8:30 Mountain Time next week is good. Who would like to lead?
I can't because I'll be barely getting in the door in time to turn the computer on. Otherwise, I would. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Ty says he can.
Oh, perfect.
All right, cool. Thank you, Ty.
All right. See you guys next week.
Okay.
See ya.
See you all next week.